Hey YouTube, my name is Natalie, and I'm going to do my first installment of our videos for me and my friend's new channel. So I'm going to start out by asking or answering 10 questions that people often ask about paganism and Wicca, just to give you kind of an idea of what to expect on this channel. And hopefully my friend will do the same. That way, if there's any differences, you'll understand that, there are some differences even within, paganism and Wicca. So let's get started. The first question is, how did you first discover paganism? So I have my friend Brooke to thank for that. When I was, under the age of 15, I think I was probably, 12, I went over to her house for probably the first time, and her mom had a really big table set up in the corner of their living room, and it had a lot of cool things on it that I'd never seen before on a table randomly in the room, like feathers and horns and little bowls and things and such. I never really snooped and got super close to it, but I had seen it a few times, and that kind of sparked my curiosity about what it was. And then not long after, my friend Brooke told me that her mom was a Wiccan. And I didn't have such great access to the internet back then, and obviously no one to talk to about it, so I just kind of, had her explain a little bit to me. And what I got from that was mostly things about goddess worship and male and female deity and things like that. So that's how I first got introduced. That wasn't a very in-depth introduction of it. The second question is, why did you choose to become pagan? I was originally a Christian. I'd been christened Catholic as a baby, which that's what they do. And then I went to Baptist church for most of my formative years, and had attended like a Methodist church before a couple of times. And once I discovered paganism and stuff as a early adult, I just realized that the religion I'd been exposed to before didn't really ring true to me. That's a phrase I hear a lot in paganism, is about ringing true, which it just didn't connect with me. It didn't feel like me. So after self-exploration and being exposed to other things later in life, that's how I became to call myself pagan, because it rings true to me. So this question originally said, what are the core tenets of Wicca, but I'm using the umbrella term of paganism. But the core tenets of paganism, I'll just go with what the core tenets of Wicca are. So Wicca has a written down thing that basically explains their core tenets, which is called the Wiccan Rede. It's kind of lengthy and written kind of older, language, a little bit harder to understand. Or it's written to sound older anyways. It's not all that old. But basically what you get from it is, if it doesn't harm anybody, do what you want. And I think that is, that's what I take as the core tenet of Wicca. I don't identify as Wiccan, so I can't speak for everyone, but that's what I take away from it is, and it harm none, do as you will, which means if your religion, your beliefs, your practices are not hurting you or yourself, then you should be allowed to do whatever you choose. It's personal responsibility to make sure you are, appropriately, doing things that don't hurt anybody, doesn't cause anyone ill will. You're not being destructive. You're not out to get somebody, retribution-wise or anything. And kind of the golden rule and karma really speak out to me in Wicca and a lot of paganism is do unto others as you would have them to unto you. And also karma, what you give out comes back to you threefold, which I think a lot of people agree with that, even if they don't know, where that idea comes from. Karma, threefold law, and the Wiccan reed is what I get out of Wicca and paganism. Number 4, what do pagans believe about God? That is kind of a multifaceted question, because you do come across Wiccans who believe differently. Wicca isn't a strict, you believe this, you believe that kind of religion. It really does allow for people to express and educate themselves however they feel comfortable. So I think basically, I may be wrong here, but what I've learned is that Wicca is a mostly polytheistic religion. And after watching a pagan perspective video, I am now identified with the term soft polytheism versus hard polytheism, and I won't get into that because I have not done the research that Kara and them have. So what I took from Wicca when I first started, because I started out as Wiccan, was that there are multiple embodiments of deity in the universe. I chose to see them as embodiments in nature, not as specific people now, which it does depend on, what part of Wicca you fall under, what part of paganism you fall under, how you specifically believe. But I believe that deity is in the universe, in nature. It's found within ourselves. It makes up the core of what we identify as people and humans, our spirituality. So I do believe in male and female aspects of deity, but I don't just believe in two. I don't have specific names for mine like a lot of people do. I started out, following a certain pantheon. I think I started with Greek, and I just couldn't keep up with the names and the stories, and they didn't ring true to me, so I realized that I just feel deity in nature specifically, more like druids do probably, and in people. So I can't really say what Wiccans believe about God. This question has it capitalized, so they do mean the Christian God, I believe. But you kind of have to ask people what they believe if you find out that they're not Christian, to see, their actual aspects. Specific things in nature like water, fire, earth, air, spirit. Those things are embodiments of what I believe. Question number 5 is, what do pagans believe about life after death? That also depends on what pagans you talk to. Some believe in reincarnation. Some might believe in maybe a more Christian view of like an Eden and a hell or something like that. I do believe in more of a what would you say? Probably more of a reincarnation kind. Basically that our essence comes from the soil, we return to the soil kind of thing, whether we're burned or in cremation or buried in the ground. We come from what we came from, is how I believe. So that's one thing I really struggled with growing up. After my friend Stephanie died, was people kept telling me, oh, she's not in pain anymore, she's in heaven and she's dancing with the angels, things like that. While I knew that was meant to make me feel better and make them feel better, it just didn't ring true to me, and it never really has since I was probably 14 or 15, about the idea of a heaven and a hell. I don't think that because people sin, they're eternally damned, and then there's the idea of you ask forgiveness and you're forgiven and you don't have to go to hell, then I'm saying, who's to say everyone doesn't ask for forgiveness before they die? So it's kind of like a little back and forth in my head about, heaven and hell. So it just doesn't ring true to me. I believe in more of reincarnation. After we die, we go back to the soil, or maybe our body is reincarnated, or maybe our soul is reincarnated, I should say. And I feel like what you come back as, assuming we do come back, is based on our karma, accumulation of good things and deeds we have accumulated over our lifetime. Let me go shut that door. I think it kind of falls under the Buddhist, belief that good karma, you come back as something good. Bad karma, you come back as a cockroach. Kind of, that thing. So that puts lots of responsibility on people to intend and make sure they do good things in life and not be, bad people to the best of their ability. Not that anyone is perfect and not that anyone should try to be, but that your intentions should be good. Number 6, what is the role of magic in paganism? That's also depending on who you talk to. I know some pagans who don't practice magic at all. And they would not define themselves as witch or anything like that. However, I do practice magic, not daily and not often, but when I feel it calls for it. And I think magic is intended to help us materialize our intent into the world. It isn't like a what do you call it? Like a whisper in the wind of what we want to happen and our intent to make it happen. It's not like in the movies, you do this and this happens. I feel like it's just an extra boost to get you prepared for things to happen however they may happen. So, and it's not a fix-all, cure-all. You do have the personal responsibility for whatever your intent is to make it happen yourself. It's just a spiritual connection to what you're intending. Number 7 is, how is your religion incorporated into your life? Me specifically, in several ways. I use some pretty basic resources to keep myself centered in my religion. And it's not daily, it's not even monthly probably. I'm comfortable in my religion enough that I don't have to put on, too much onto myself to do so much ritual, because it is pretty draining and too much magic. So things I help incorporate my religion into my life is incense. I have a bag of Elder Futhark runes, and that's what they look like, made out of amethyst. I have herbs. This one grows in my yard, so it's really the only one I have. It grew in my backyard last year, and it's growing in my front yard this year, so this is from my backyard. It's common mullein, which is supposed to kind of help with colds, and you can infuse it into teas to help when you're sick and stuff. I also use smudge, various kinds, mostly sage, but I think my other one has some lavender and a few other things in it. I use essential oils, various brands, in ritual and in spellcasting and in my daily life, just to give me that reminder that about what I'm doing. Colored candles for candle magic, meditation, spells, kind of things. What else? I have an athame that I've used once, because it's not super comfortable to use for me. It's not one of the tools I got into, and it seems a little bit superfluous in my life, so I don't use it really ever. I have probably several different kinds of books. This is like the first one I got, so it's kind of funny. Books about Sabbats and the Wheel of the Year to help me, you know, my gardening and Esbats and Sabbats and stuff. I also have a tarot kit. It's upside down. Tarot kit to help me. And I do have a Book of Shadows that I keep on my computer just because I wouldn't want anything to happen to it if it were a hard copy. I do plan to print it out, but it's a lot of pages, and I don't know that my printer can handle it quite yet, so it's just easier. I'm on the computer a lot to use the computer. So, yeah. Also, another way I incorporate my religion is I take the time to be in nature, feel the spiritual connection to the wind. When it's summer and all my trees in my yard are green, scrying, gazing into the leaves and seeing what comes out of my mind, helps me connect. Also, it's kind of like one of those things where people just daze off into a daydream and stuff, but I like to follow it and see where it leads me. I start a spring garden around now every spring, now that I've moved into my own house and not an apartment, to help me, you know, materialize the bountiful gifts of Mother Earth from my own yard. So also helps me save money on vegetables. I like that. But yeah, so that's kind of how I incorporate my religion into my life. I don't go around wearing giant, you know, pinnacle necklaces and spelling people and stuff like that. That's just all silly. Number 8 says, are any of the rumors true about paganism being devil worship or evil? Short answer, no. Most pagans I've ever talked to don't believe in any type of idea of a devil, or you know, like evil specifically being out in a religion. I believe about evil is that everybody has good and evil within themselves, and it depends on how people manifest it to be, you know, if they should be labeled as a good person or maybe, you know, having too much evil in their life. You know, I don't think that evil is present in religion. I don't think it's meant to be, and I feel like too much strife is caused by that idea that, you know, certain religions are intended to hurt other people, because I really don't believe the ones I've learned about anyways are intended to ever hurt anyone. I just think people misconstrue the idea of what they're taught in their religion and use it to their benefit to conquer countries and wage wars and things like that. I think that's all human construct. I don't think it is religious. Number 9 says, do you think paganism is misunderstood by most people, and if you do, how so? I do think the majority of people I'm around do misunderstand paganism, because I live in the Bible Belt in Oklahoma, and it's not really something I've ever been introduced to besides by a few people. I don't think it's widely known, because there is a vast majority of Baptist churches, Catholic churches, things around here. We do have a Unitarian church, which I have attended once, and I've heard it's slightly more like a liberal base of Christianity, kind of more like a science base. It was for a funeral, so I wasn't really in a service, but I'm curious to look it up, so I can get back on that one later. But I do think it's misunderstood, especially around the people I'm around. Nearly everyone in my life is Christian of some type. there's very few and far between. I've met a Buddhist, I've met an agnostic, which I used to identify as agnostic myself when I didn't know what I was connecting to the most. I've met atheists. I've never met a Satanist or anything like that, but I feel like Christianity and other, Abrahamic religions kind of condemn paganistic kind of religions, and lack of information is kind of what fuels that, I think. I feel like, they push it off and don't talk about it and hide it, for their own religious reasons, and that is what I feel like. Ignorance leads to fear. So I do feel like paganism is misunderstood by most people. And number 10 says, what would you like people to understand about paganism? First and foremost is that it is not evil. Most pagan, I won't even say, I can only speak for what I know. My pagan religion beliefs are nature-based, deity in nature, beauty in nature, protecting nature, reflecting in nature. It's almost druid style paganism, really, but also that people should be held responsible and intend to do things according to what they believe in a non-harmful way. And I feel like paganism is a good example of that. I feel like most pagans I've ever met, which is like 5 or so, do tend to think more objectively about their lifestyle and what they intend to do in their life and how they treat people, and they don't leave the responsibility on a higher deity about decision making and intentions and things like that. I feel like as a whole, paganism really is responsible and inward thinking and reflective, and that I feel like people shouldn't be afraid of it. I mean, if you find out someone is pagan or may suspect they are, maybe you could ask them, and if they want to talk, that's fine. Don't try to, change their mind, and don't start a debate, and just listen to how they feel and really reflect on that. And I feel like that would help really give paganism a better name, because it really is a wonderful religion to be identified with, to me. I think this is the most happy I've felt, being able to freely accept how I believe without fear of like a higher deity or something like that. So that's kind of my 10 questions on Wicca and paganism. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope Brooke has some awesome things to add, because she usually does. So thanks for watching.